But it has no surer masquerade than to hide even in the environs of the church. Now, as Luther wrote on Councils in the Church, he said, wherever God builds a church, the devil builds a chapel. And it is grander and finer than any church God builds. And it mimics whatever God does, whatever the people of God would do externally, the devil can mimic. And do it even finer than the people of God can. And so the unholy Trinity takes this generative death anxiety, this urgency that places us in need for consolation. And it says, have I got a deal for you? And it preys upon sinners who are just looking for a word. Sinners who are running from the true cost of their loss and the true cost of consolation. And so as power is exercised in the church, it is the power of false consolation, preying upon this generative death anxiety and the urgency it presents. And so here's what happens. We have all of these stages of grieving and all of those that apply to dying as well. And so when the consoler comes, when the true consoler comes, then the grieving, the sinner, who refuses to face the true cost of the loss and consolation, then the death of their immortality projects, they have a strategy. And the students of Becker, the disciples of Ernest Becker, who have carried on his work and taken it from the theoretical proposal that Becker elucidated in the 60s and 70s, and they've carried his proposal forward in the 90s now in the 21st century, and they have taken it from the theoretical and they've demonstrated the hypothesis experimentally. And so now they have shown, both in the lab and in real-world situations, the importance, the power of what they have called mortality salience. In other words, reminders of death change our behavior. And when your immortality project is threatened, we engage in, they gave it a fancy name called terror management theory, and I think it was unfortunate that they gave it that name prior to the bursting of terrorism upon the world stage, because now after 2001, when we hear terror, we think of jihad and buildings blowing up and all of that. But it's not that terror, it's the terror of the generative death anxiety stimulated by mortality salience. So there is...
So when our... You finish that sentence. When our immortality projects are threatened... What?
When we engage in terror management theory.
Okay.
We fall back on something called terror management. And it's the terror of the terror stimulated by mortality salience that arouses the generative death anxiety.
It's what also sometimes called coping skills.
Yeah, well, there we go, yes. So terror management is a set of coping skills. We'll put it that way. And these coping skills are avoidance, acquisition, accommodation, avoidance. This could be denying. It could be ignoring. It's somehow managing to pretend that there is no threat at all to your immortality project. And it's where you might have two cultures, you know, and one culture worships their left shoe and the other culture worships their right shoe. But they don't mingle, because to do so would be to challenge each culture's immortality project. So they just avoid one another. And this is one of the reasons. This is one of the reasons why marriage between different denominations and different cultures was so much prohibited. Because once the other culture was involved with a family in as intimate relationship as marriage, there was no more avoidance. You couldn't ignore the other culture any longer. And so now you had a direct challenge to your immortality projects brought right into the intimacy of your own home or your own family. Then you had to go to the second stage, which is acquisition. They actually call it conversion, but I wanted 4 A's, so I put acquisition. You acquire them. You acquire the dissenting or the challengers. You acquire them and convert them to your system.
Kind of like a board.
Yes, resistance is futile. Assimilation. Yeah.
There you got your A now.
Assimilation. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. I
That's
like
better.
that better.
It's better.
Assimilation. Yeah.
So when you said acquisition, I was thinking in terms of buried and materialistic narcissism.
Ah, okay. Yeah, assimilation is better, and then we can just reference the Borg, and everybody will go, oh yeah. But see, now you understand. Now you understand some of the missionary zeal.
And we even I went to a Missouri Synod evangelism meeting, and he talked about assimilation. It's not enough just in a good sense. It's not enough just to have somebody come and visit. You have to assimilate them into your congregation so that they're not on the outside.
Yes.
And even as you look at inter-Lutheran conversation, how do you assimilate into being one?
Yeah. Yeah. So the second stage then is assimilation, conversion, bringing them into the fold, convincing them of the appropriateness and the rightness of your particular immortality project. Well, that doesn't always work. And so sometimes, instead of avoidance and assimilation, we have to engage in accommodation. And accommodation is where you begin to make compromises. And so the two conflicting immortality projects become a smorgasbord where you can pick some of this and some of that, and you work out a mutually acceptable combination of the two.
Synergism.
A synergism or syncretism. Yeah, a syncretism, as